Okay, welcome back to Fast Ship Performance then. My name is Tim Davies, and as you can see, I'm back in the attack shack, dropping truth bombs on your personal battlefield, helping you to win the wars you are fighting. And I've got a guest today who's not only won wars, he continues to win wars, and this is value. This is what we're bringing in here, guys, and you need to listen to this dude because he is the master of whatever, all the fitness, all the weight loss, everything. Grab this guy. I've been chatting to him a long time on Twitter. He's the knowledge, so he's here to drop those truth bombs as well. I'm going to bring him in right now then. Matt Izzo. How you doing, Matt? Good to see you.
Hi, Tim. Great to see you as well. I'm doing great. How are you today?
Not too bad. Look, put your name down there. And one thing I have put down there, because you're really big on Twitter, I've put your name at Matt Izzo. If people are on Twitter right now, you need to go on there. You need to follow Matt, and you need to read everything he's ever written in his whole life ever. Okay, that's how I'm going to leave that.
Welcome. I hope you do, right? I try to make my Twitter page an uplifting, sort of inclusive environment, right? It's about getting better. Twitter has a reputation for having a lot of negativity on it, and that's certainly fair. That there is a lot of that, but you can curate who you follow, and if you follow the right people on Twitter, it will level up your life. And I try to make my page and my interactions about let's all just get better, right? Because a rising tide, it lifts all boats. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about that. The mute button, I find, I don't really block people. I just mute them. It's a nicer way of doing it. I don't want to block anyone, just mute them, and then you don't have to hear them again. Then, your message is getting out to the right people. When did you start going onto Twitter, and why did you go on Twitter? Was it because of the journey you'd been through and you felt you wanted to spread a message, or were you following people before that helped you on your journey that we're going to talk about in a second?
Yeah, I've been on Twitter since 2009, actually, and I've had multiple accounts at this point, and a lot of my prior accounts were like anonymous or pseudo anonymous, and they were really kind of geared toward one specific niche, like the sports teams I was interested in. And I always saw Twitter as a great tool, but the niches I was in, they weren't big enough. And I was I felt a lot of shame about who I was for a long time. I'm sure we'll kind of get deeper into that as we talk. But as I kind of lost weight and I was featured at one point by Men's Health magazine for my weight loss. And when that happened, I kind of seized on the opportunity to, create some social media space. I made an Instagram account. I made a Twitter account. And eventually I got around to tweeting, as me, right, with who I am, sharing my story, sharing my picture, sharing my journey. And, initially that was really hard for me. But so I got big into sharing this account. It was right after the pandemic started. And I was working from home, and I said, hey, you know what? I may as well spend some of this time working on building out this Twitter account. So it's, been since about March 2020, I've been tweeting on this and trying to help people and just, share my story, what I've overcome.
Yeah, I think this is what we need more of, isn't it? I think if we can, it's very interesting, isn't it? Like a parent, I'm not a parent myself, but when parents apparently tell their children to do something and the children won't necessarily do it, but when they can see the parent doing it, then the kid realizes it has a significant value. And so the kid just does it. And that's why I think that, especially as I get a bit older, I've got a nephew who's very young. He's about 8 years old, and he hasn't got a father because my sister's a single mother. And I think he's going to look around and look for men. And I want me to be one of the men he looks at and says, well, this is going to work because my uncle's doing that, right? And my other uncle is in the Middle East. He's a bit of a fitness dude. And so that's what I'm hoping. So Twitter is a place you can spread your message. Now, the message that I get from you is that, I talk about failure a lot. Now, failure for me is first attempt in learning, FAIL, all right? So first attempt in learning. I don't look at failure as a bad thing. I look at failure as, I look at people that haven't failed as deprived of something. But people that have failed have gained something really knowledgeable. And you've done the weight loss journey now 3 times, I believe. Yeah. And this is your 3rd time. You've worked out the code. You've done the maths. You're stuck to it. You're never going back. This is you. This is your life now. And this is what you tell other people now. This is your message. It's like, you can do it. You can be here I am. You can feel great. Can we talk about how you felt back in high school when you always had a problem with how you felt about your body? What was that feeling like? What did it mean?
Yeah, it was, growing up when I did in the late 80s and early 90s, I was the fat kid, right? Now that was but before most of the kids were were fat, you know, and it was a challenging way to grow up. You know, it was very obvious that you're different from the other kids, and the other kids make fun of you and they exclude you, right? And it's easy to just see the physical difference. So I came to identify my physical state sort of, you know, and saw it in a very negative light. What I've realized, you know, doing this for so long and, you know, healing along my journey is that, you know, I had deeper emotional issues, right, that I kind of needed to solve that were really what my problem was, these deeper emotional issues, more so than just the physical weight I was carrying. That was more a symptom of my problem than my actual problem. And that was why it took me so long to really overcome it, because I would lose the fat, right? And there's the physical aspect of it, which is great. You know, it's simple enough to lose fat. And I think everybody who's been fat for a long time has had some success losing it, or, you know, made some progress with it, but it's just so difficult to maintain. And that's because it involves, well, the mental part of it and the emotional part of it, right? It's more than just counting calories and exercising, right? You know, you have to kind of make a holistic transformation in order to, like you said, right, embody this sort of new person, and, you know, have this just be who you are, right? When they say it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. It's a cliche, but cliches usually are true to a certain extent. And it's a lifestyle change is not like I sit down and I just do like a list of 30 things every day. It's more like, this is who I am now. And I just, through the course of my life, I just embody these sort of habits and behaviors. And, you know, this is what really transformed me from being, you know, the kid in high school, you know, who felt really uncomfortable with my body and, you know, felt different from the other kids, to now I would say I've kind of transcended that. And I don't necessarily care so much about what I look like, right? I see the bigger picture than that.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. So the emotional issues you had, was this like a familial issue that you had growing up? Was it something that you felt you weren't valued, and that was the emotional thing, and therefore the weight, you just didn't feel valued by anyone, the weight didn't matter, so you were able to just carry that weight and not care about yourself? Is that what it is?
I guess it's hard to say. I mean, honestly, I don't necessarily even know what the cause of it was. It's just, you know, I lacked a certain self-belief, you know, and the way our minds work, our minds can only understand the present and the future through the lens of the past, right? Because our
Yeah.
minds can only see the things that happened to us in the past, and kind of consider how things would happen in the future based upon how the past has gone. So if you start off on the wrong foot in life, you know, if you suffer setbacks early, it's easy to kind of get into a cycle of negativity where you just, you know, it's hard to see a way out of it, because you've trained yourself and you've conditioned your mind to just see the world a certain way, versus somebody who, you know, might have a different childhood, right, with positive experiences, you know, and like you talked about failures, right, overcoming some failures. And then, you might come to see the world differently, right? So then as you grow up, you're going to have a very different life experience than somebody who's sort of had a more negative childhood, right? Maybe they had failures and they didn't overcome them, and they're going to just sort of see the world a certain way versus someone else, right? So it's hard to say. It wasn't just one specific thing. I guess I would say I was a low energy person, right? I was in a low emotional state, and you attract more of that into your life when you're in that state, and it can be a challenging thing to break out of that. It took me a long time, that's for sure.
Yeah, so we talk about the low vibration versus the high vibrations, don't we? And if we're living with the low vibrations, we attract other people that have low vibration. A typical example, of course, is you talking about the bar, going to the bar on a Friday night. Who's in that bar on a Friday night? I mean, typically people probably that have low vibration, and you feel accepted by that crowd. Doesn't matter what size you are, because everyone else is the same size, doing the same thing as you. It's you don't have to change, because you've got people that accept you for who you are, even if you're not accepting yourself for who you are. And I think that's something I look at victimhood out here a lot more, and it's a lot more common now for people to feel they're the victim. And I think when you feel you're the victim, it's not your fault anymore, is it? Because someone else has done it to you. So it's not up to you to make the change. It's up to the state to provide, maybe, or something like this. It's not your fault. And I try and get that across to people. I'm like, there's no one else coming to save you out here. There's no one coming to save you. No one cares. I mean, seriously, no one cares. It's like, it's up to you. And by doing that to yourself, you become the message, as you have done. You become the message that says, you can do this. You just have to do it.
Yeah. And it's empowering to realize that you're not just a helpless victim, that things don't just happen to you, right? Because it gives you some agency then to make changes. And I posted something last week about bullying, and I came to understand that, I attracted the treatment from the bullies into my life, right? And the emotionally healthy kids, they didn't even bother with me because they didn't get any payoff from interacting with me. They just saw me as like, I don't want to deal with that. He's low energy, and I don't want to, get involved with him. And it's the other emotionally damaged kids, right? And they would interact with me, and I would react in such a way that would give them a payoff for that. And it just ends up being like a symbiotic sort of relationship where they give me negativity and I give them that negativity back, right? And we both feed off that. But it's ultimately a sign that both of us weren't negative, emotionally healthy. But understanding that, I wasn't just a helpless victim. These things didn't just happen to me. To some extent, I attracted this behavior and I encouraged it with my reactions to it. Well, then it's like, okay, now I can change this. I can change the way I see myself, and I can change the way I let other people treat me, and I can raise my energy, and I can attract different people into my life. And I'm not just stuck being the victim for the rest of my life.
Okay, this is something interesting right here. This is something interesting you just said there, okay? Well, amongst everything else you said there, Matt. But let's talk about something that I heard recently. We on another dude's podcast, and you were talking about with him about how do you get people. Interestingly, Tony Robbins talks about potential action results belief as well. And we were talking about results, and it's only when you can feel you have the potential, but it's only when you see the results, or potential when you action something and you see the results, do you believe you can have the potential? And that's where you go around the circle. So with that in mind, then everyone has the potential to change. We all know that. Everyone does. Most people don't go from the potential to the action stage. That's the hard thing that Tony Robbins says. He says, once I get them to action something, strangely enough, they will see some results. They might feel better about themselves inside. They might see a little bit of weight loss. They might see a bit of control around alcohol, whatever the problem is. But he says, I find it very difficult to get people from the potential to the action stage. That first step, then, you were talking about with another dude on his podcast. How do we get people to recognize that first stage needs action? Because once they do, we can move them forward. How do you go about that with the clients you have?
Yeah, with the clients I have, I mean, really, I think they have to kind of get to that stage first, because you're only going to reach out to me and hire me, right? That can be the first step, but it ultimately comes down to connecting with the part of you that realizes you can be better. And I've struggled with this for 25 years, and I would say throughout that whole time there was always a part of me who knew that it could be better, right? Who knew that there was a better world out there, who knew that I could figure this out. And I think that's true of everyone. Everyone feels that on some level. Everyone who's out of shape, who's overweight, right? There's a part of them who wants to get better, and it's about connecting with that part. And it's going to be a lengthy process, right? I lost, this most recent time, I lost 75 pounds. I've kept it off for over 5 years now. But it's, in a lot of ways, it started with me walking 10,000 steps every day. And I did that every day for 2.5 years, even before I started losing weight, right? So, it was a lengthy process for me, and it seemed lengthy at the time, but, it's about proving it to yourself, right? And getting victories along the way, building up momentum. And it's about just starting, right? And you can't expect to wake up and be a different person one day, but you can integrate 1 or 2 habits that will help make your life better, will help get you moving in the right direction. And then as you integrate those habits, you build momentum, you can add more habits, right? And then you can just kind of build on that and do more, because if you would show me what I do every day now, 7, 8 years ago, I would have told you that's impossible. I could never do that, right? Because I didn't just sit down one day and say, okay, well, these are the 40 things I'm going to do every day or every week. It didn't happen like that. It happened with, hey, maybe I'm going to start flossing my teeth every night, right? Oh, that's good. It feels good to take care of myself. I got a Fitbit. I'm going to go walk 10,000 steps every day. Oh, okay. I start to feel a little bit better, right? Maybe I'll start to pay some more attention to what I'm eating, and there's also some missteps along the way. It's not just a straight line up, right? For a while there, my fitness plan was switching from beer to liquor. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, if I stop drinking beer and I start drinking liquor, maybe I'll drop some weight, right? And it might have worked to a certain extent, but it's not what I would consider to be a viable, fitness plan. So, it's a process, and it involves trial and error. Like you said, it involves failure. You have to, just keep going. And I guess that's what I would tell myself from years ago, is that it doesn't end, right? And just because you reach a weight loss goal, or just because you reach some milestone, it doesn't mean that your journey is over and you don't have to keep going, because you do, right? The way the world is stacked against us in a lot of ways these days, it's easy to fall, off the wrong side of the mountain. You got to keep going every day and keep that kind of goal in mind.
Yeah, it's the diet fallacy is one thing. It's the diet. You have to start one, you have to end it. Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it? If you're starting and stopping a diet, you're going to gain that back again, aren't you? Whereas if you embrace a healthy lifestyle and a healthy respect for what you're putting inside your body, food wise, well, then that's it's going to be there for life. I'm going to bring up some pictures now, and these are interesting to me. So this is going to obviously take the audience here back to where you were, and I think I'll tell you what's great about this. I'm a very open guy when I come to like alcoholism and everything else and stuff that I've been through in the military and things like that. And I think you're a very open guy as well. And I think that's what kind of makes me kind of jump onto guys like yourself and some other dudes online there. I'm like, oh, that guy's the same as I am. That guy's trying to help people. He's trying to. So you put a picture up. It's not the most flattering picture. Be like, hey, this is where I am. And a lot of people are there now looking at this and saying, there's that guy, and then there's this guy I'm talking to. They're two different people. When was this, and what happened there? Was this the last time you lost all the weight?
Yeah, this is the summer of 2016. So this is about a few months before I started losing weight, again. And, you can just see, like, my suit doesn't fit, right? The button on the suit jacket's straining. I can't even button my collar, right? It's just... I'm too ashamed though to buy clothes that fit me, right? Because I don't want to have to go and buy a 19-inch collar shirt. I don't want to have to go to the big and tall store, right? That's not how I see myself, and it's painful for me to do that. And I would look in the mirror and be like, well, I'm not going to be this fat forever, so why would I waste the money buying these big clothes that don't fit me, right? And I guess to a certain extent it was true, but it doesn't make me look better in the picture. Obviously, you can see just from a visual representation that I'm clinging to a smaller size since the suit I'm wearing doesn't even fit me.
Yeah, clinging to. So you had a body image of yourself that wasn't this person that you were that day. I mean, you knew.
Yes. So I lost weight in my 20s, right? And like you had said, I had lost the 75 pounds twice before. And at this time, if you would have asked me, I would have said those previous attempts were failures, right? Because I put in all that work and I reached my goal only to let it go. But now that I look back at them, I see them as successes because they proved to me that this was possible, right? So in my 20s, I lost a lot of weight and I got into really good shape, and I had this vision of myself, like what I could be. And man, if I just stick with this, right, I'll look like this, or I'll feel like this. I'll be able to do this. And even though it didn't work out that way for me, I still kind of kept that vision in the back of my mind, and I knew on some level that was possible, and that I needed to get back to that. And I didn't want to accept where I was, when I looked like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so what we're going to talk about now is your last loss here, where you've come down around about 235, something like that, and you'll come down now to 156, which to me is pretty ridiculous, really. Interestingly, you've said before though that you weren't interested in building muscle. That wasn't even in your scan. It wasn't about that. You were about the agility and the fitness and the competing, and you do a lot of that now. Is that right?
Not exactly. I mean, I didn't even get involved in competition until 2019. What my main goal was I wanted to keep my weight at 160 pounds because I knew that if I get down to 160, I'm not fat at that weight. And if I just keep working out and I keep exercising and the scale doesn't go up, every day the scale doesn't go up, I'm beating obesity, right? I'm not gaining this weight back again. And so I didn't care about adding muscle or whatever. The scale, it's probably not the healthiest way to do it from an emotional standpoint, right? People say not to fixate on the scale, but what I'll tell you is fixating on the scale worked for me because it allowed me to do this, looking at this weight graph. I would say in many ways, this is the most incredible thing I've ever achieved because I not only lost the weight, but I kept it off for years. But I did that through action and through intention, and by maintaining a pretty rigorous schedule of what I ate and the sort of training I did. But I had to teach myself how to live a lifestyle that maintained this, right? It wasn't something that I inherently understood how to do. And like you had said earlier, just because the diet ends doesn't mean you just stop. And if I would stop when the diet ended, well, I would just go back to living the way I lived before. And obviously that doesn't work, right? So I had to teach myself how to live again. And I had to set up more rules and kind of keep some structure in place. I kept tracking my food. I kept exercising, but I kept the weight off, right? And that was something that I never thought was possible. And, until I did it and I proved it to myself, right? That's success for me. I didn't care about gaining 30 pounds of muscle. I was happy enough just not being fat for once in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people would say, I'm just the shape I am. I can never do this, especially with I've been in the States a few times. The food that you have in the States, it's very hard, isn't it? Is it not very hard to eat healthily and consistently? You have a lot of planning to get the correct foods that you would need. Am I still thinking this is correct? Or are there stores you can go to which are like super grass-fed beef stores and you can pick up all this stuff and it's absolutely fine?
You can eat very healthy here. It's the options are pretty much limitless, I guess, right? And I would say I eat a healthier diet here than most people throughout history have ever eaten. It's just kind of not the norm, right? So the stuff is there, but most mainstream people aren't eating like this. You have to look for it a bit, right? If you just kind of go and buy the sort of foods that people buy, the sort of foods that are advertised in the mainstream media, right? That's not going to be a good road to go down. You have to kind of seek it out. You have to do your own research and educate yourself about what you should be eating and where to get it and that kind of thing.
So did you track this is MyFitnessPal, I guess. I use that as well. Did you track macros down here and stick to them? Did you have like 5 meals a day? What were you doing? What was your plan?
Not at this time. I didn't do any macros. I had tracked macros previously. I did this pretty much by counting calories and focusing on eating protein dominant meals, right? Yep. So if you just focus on having a portion of lean protein with each meal and restricting the calories, counting macros works too, because macros are just calories kind of extrapolated. So that could be a good thing. This was MyFitnessPal. I did it by eating 6 meals a day. I ate 6 small meals a day. I know that's not really in vogue these days. People kind of gravitate more toward fasting and intermittent fasting. And I think there's a lot of value in that too, right? It depends on the individual. I don't think these are hard and fast rules. Yeah. I like to eat 6 meals a day because it meant I was never really more than an hour and a half away from having eaten or eating again. So that kind of made it easier to just manage, right? You look down at the clock and you're like, all right, well, I get to eat again in an hour and 20 minutes. That's not so bad. I can make it. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably do some intermittent fasting, because I think learning to come to terms with hunger and manage your hunger levels is very beneficial, right? And, so that was the way I did it, was kind of a Band-Aid over kind of managing my hunger and learning that it's okay to be hungry. It's okay to not eat for 8, 12, or even 24 or 36 hours. It's not going to kill you, right? Doesn't even make you feel that bad. But I like to eat the small frequent meals.
Okay. And so talking of eating and small frequent meals, then we'll bring Courtney in.
Yeah.
Courtney is your wife, partner? I must admit, I've never known this.
She's a partner. Yeah. We're not technically married, but we've been together for a long time at this point.
She's not escaping, is she? She's not.
No. Not now, anyway. I mean, maybe she stuck around back then for sure, but
you reset all the codes of the house, she's going nowhere. You know what I mean? She's going nowhere. So she obviously does a lot on YouTube as well with cooking wise, and she talks about meal prep and everything else. I followed Courtney. It's really useful stuff, actually. Now, an interesting thing here, were you on this journey together, or did you do the journey and then Courtney saw the changes that were happening with you and then she decided that was something she wanted to do as well? How did that work out?
So she was actually on the journey ahead of me. She in like 2015, she had a blood test done and she was pre-diabetic, right? And that hit her pretty hard, you know, and she realized that she needed to make some changes. She didn't really know she didn't really know how to do it though, right? And here I was like, I had, you know, expert level knowledge on how to get into shape because I did it in my 20s. In my 20s, I taught myself all about fitness and nutrition, right? But I wasn't living the lifestyle. So it was hard for me to just give people advice because obviously you lack any kind of credibility if you look like I do in the top picture there and I'm going to give you fitness and weight loss advice. You're going to be like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. Cool. So, you know, she struggled with like Weight Watchers and things, you know, and maybe doing some kind of less than ideal you know, things to try to lose weight. And then once I started doing it, you know, I pretty much, I clicked back over to who I was in my mid 20s. Once I started losing fat, once I committed myself to doing it, I pretty much went back to what I was doing in my mid 20s almost overnight. And it was pretty shocking for her at the time because I was like a different person right then. But after a few weeks, she saw how effective my methods were, you know, as you saw from my kind of fat loss graph. You know, I lost 1.7 pounds per week for 8.5 months. So then she kind of started doing what I was doing, and she also saw great success. And, you know, we've been on it together really, you know, for this whole time.
How does it, so for you, when you were coming down there, are you seeing the scales going down? That's what the motivating factor for you is? Or do you know that you're going to get there because you've done it twice already? It's a no brainer. You know how to do it. You're fine. You're going to end up there. And now you just got to figure out how to stay there this time.
Yeah, I knew how to get there. It really wasn't. It was more the thing that really kept me from doing it again was not thinking I could maintain the fat loss because who wants to deprive yourself for 8.5 months only to end up getting fat again, right? And, you know, so it was really hard to kind of summon the energy and the motivation to get started again. But once I got started again, I knew I was going to be successful. I pretty much planned out down to the week when I was going to hit 160 because I had done this before. I knew what was required. What I did when I started, though, was I made a plan for after this, right? And I realized, well, if I'm going to lose this weight, I'm going to slim down, what am I going to do once I reach my goal to maintain it? And that really became my focus, right? You know, I started thinking about the end at the beginning and you know, okay, well, when I reach the goal, then what am I going to do? So I really kind of had this longer term plan in mind. And I knew it would take 8 or 9 months for me to get to where I wanted to be. But then after I got there, my concern was, well, how do I keep this off? And like I said, I pretty much just kept a lot of the same rules and structure in place that I did when I was losing weight. I kept tracking my food. Obviously, I could eat quite a bit more, which was a huge relief. It felt great to, you know, go from eating 1,800 calories a day to eating 2,500 calories a day, right? You know, so I didn't care about tracking the food. It was, I got to eat more, and I felt so much better from that. And I kept training. I kept walking 10,000 steps every day. I kept stepping on the scale every day. And I realized if I keep doing these things, well, how am I gonna really get fat again, right? You know, worst case scenario, I gain a few pounds, and it's easier to lose 5 pounds than it is 50 pounds, right? I can just buckle down for 2 or 3 weeks and you know, get back into shape if I need to, and not just have the problem coming and then just ignore it and pretend like it's not happening, like I would in the past.
Okay, that makes sense. So you and I think we were beer guys, bar guys. You know, we like that kind of thing. New Jersey, I believe you were. Is that right?
Yeah.
I guess you've got a pretty good culture up there, and now you've moved down to Florida, which we're a lot more sun, I guess. You know what I'm saying, down south. But how do you now, when you go out for like a meal or something, do you look at certain things and you just know that you're not having that? Like, it's just not even, it's, you know, it's not like you really want it anymore. Say you might have wanted it. There may be something in there like chicken in a basket with chips or fries, you call them. And you might now kind of go, yeah, I didn't even want that anymore. I used to, but I don't want that. What I'm going to have is this, maybe some salmon and some stuff like that. Is it instant?
Yeah, I mean, when you start eating healthy, you know, if you do it for a few months, I think you really start to you retrain your palate in a lot of ways, and you kind of realize how gross a lot of this food makes you feel, right? You know,
Right.
you learn you know, I had some salty food the other night for dinner, and my weight went up 5 pounds, right, overnight. You know, and like that's not, you know, I'm smart enough to understand that that's not fat that I put
No,
on, but
water, isn't it?
You still feel bloated and gross, and you still hate seeing the scale go up like that. So, you know, one of the things now, I'm training for an Ironman, so I can pretty much eat anything I want at this point, which is nice. But that's going to mean that when I, you know, do stop training and turn that down a bit, I'm going to have to really be kind of vigilant about what I'm eating. But, you know, I kind of gravitate now toward eating healthier foods because it makes me feel good.
Yeah, makes you feel good. And you know that nutrition is going to benefit you in the longer term anyway. And
Yes.
and this is it. It's interesting, isn't it? I think people should go to one of these restaurants. We have chain restaurants over here, but you know, go and have a McDonald's or something when you've done this and just see how you feel.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't feel good when you're sat in the car. You're like driving back from McDonald's. You're like, that did nothing for me. Like, what do I do that for?
A couple of years ago, I was training for my first marathon, and I had a 20-mile run on a Sunday morning, and the night before, I had just like takeaway Chinese food for dinner, and all that run was terrible. It was like 3.5 hours, and I was dying the whole time, and my pulse was super high, and it was just, you learn these lessons like, well, if I want to do a 20-mile run, I have to fuel myself appropriately. I have to take care of myself. And, you know, this is one of the great things that I get from like training for Ironman races is it really requires me to be dialed in every aspect. You have to, you know, you have to recover, you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to train, right? And it all kind of works together.
Yeah, it's that recovery. I did a marathon with my wife in Berlin back in 2011, and I think I had a cheeseburger the night before and a couple of beers. That was a hard. It was like I think it was 4 hours actually in the end. That was hard. You know, it was just hard. But you don't know anything back then, do you? Because you're a bit younger, whatever. And you don't really think about it. I can have a cheeseburger, a few beers, run a marathon because you can. Nothing good is going to come of that. These are you doing these. You done some Ironmans, haven't you? You've done a sprint, I believe, an Olympic. And this is this Ironman you're doing now is the 73.1, is it? Am I right in thinking that?
So the Ironman in the upper left, that was a 70.3. That was from last year. And right now I'm training for a full distance Ironman, which is 140.6 miles.
Which has got the marathon in it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a 2.5 mile swim and then a 112-mile bike ride and a marathon at the end.
So you're kind of in that amateur professional athlete sphere that you've dropped into.
It's a lot of effort, right? You know, and I mean, I'm training, I don't know, at least 10 hours per week right now. It's only going to ramp up as the race gets closer, but you know, it's something that's so far beyond anything I ever thought I could do. And it's amazing to just train like this, you know, and I feel like I'm in my late 30s. I'm about to turn 40 next month, right? And I feel like it feels so great to just be attain some of my athletic potential. Because as a kid, you know, I was fat and weak, and I was unathletic, and I stopped playing sports, you know, at a very early age. You know, getting back to it now in my late 30s, and it really feels great to just kind of realize that, wow, like I can achieve something like this. But I never thought I could do that before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Completely makes sense. I mean, to me, it's this madness you want to do. Here's the thing for you I was going to ask. So training up in New Jersey, I'm assuming the weather up there is a bit more inclement. Obviously in Florida, I guess it's a lot more sunny and everything else. Do you find training down in Florida a lot easier than you did when you're up north?
No, it's harder. It's harder for sure.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's hot here all the time, unrelentingly hot and humid. You know, it's just running outside, especially in June right now. It's really unpleasant. There's no kind of respite from the heat. This also isn't a great place for cycling. Where I was in New Jersey, it was kind of a more suburban, rural sort of area with nice rolling hills and nice lush green countryside, and here it's just flat and traffic lights, and you know it's not great for cycling. But I mean there are some great advantages to it too. The sun is great. All the swimming options, swimming in the ocean, stuff like that. That's great. So, but on the balance, training in New Jersey, right? It presented some challenges with the weather, but you know running in cold is better than running in hot, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What was the reason for moving down south? Was it just to get closer to the ocean that you could use or something, or?
Yeah, Courtney got a promotion at work actually,
Okay.
so the opportunity kind of popped up. But on some level, even going back to being a kid, I always knew I was going to live in Florida. And it was a goal of mine to move down here for a long time. And the opportunity came up, and I took it. And just what I've kind of come to learn about circadian biology and the importance of sun exposure. Right. If you do a cost benefit analysis or a pro con list, well, one of the pros is just so much more significant than all the other ones. And that's, well, you get year round sun exposure here. So I can get 1 to 3 hours of sun exposure on my bare skin every day here, where in New Jersey in the winter, you might go a week without really seeing the sun. So for me, I'm like, well, that's just a no-brainer. If I could be down here and get all that sun exposure, year round, then that's where I want to live. So that was my main kind of interest in moving and coming down here.
Yeah, we do the same in the UK with rain. Actually, we get rain exposure, so we get like 1 to 3 hours a day of rain on our skins. Yeah. Apparently it's good for us somehow. I'm not too sure. We don't see the sun. We've heard about it before. We've heard about it. We don't see it very often.
It's great if you get a chance to see it. I see a lot of the Brits down here in South Florida, and you could always tell because they're always bright pink.
When
they're down here, they have some pale marks, and then they're bright pink than the rest of them.
I'll look at the sun, just go, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like a lobster. So you got last two pictures here. This is obviously your weight loss picture, and then this one here is just showing the contrast between the two. Yeah. I mean, and so when clients come to you, they've obviously seen this, and they're like, I'm that guy on the left, and I want to be the guy on the right, and I want to see results now, and how long is it going to take? Do you talk about the longevity of the journey and the sustainment of it, or do you try? I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? It's not a quick fix, is it? That's the thing. People want that, but it took a long time to get to that size. It's going to take a long time to get out of that size.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sell any snake oil or anything like that, right? I'm pretty much straight up, and I think it's attainable for anyone, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a few weeks or a few months, and you're not going to get it by taking a pill or a powder. There's no magical solution to it. There are obviously best practices. There's things you can do that help. But it's about committing yourself to a lifelong journey, right? And it's going to be a lifelong thing. And that's not to make it sound like it's daunting, because you can only ever do what you're doing right now in the moment, right? So it's great to have a goal. Everybody should have a goal that they're working towards, but you don't want to fixate on it too much, right? Sometimes I'll find myself thinking about Ironman Florida, which I could look over there and see it's 144 days from now. But I'll say, well, why do I want to subject myself to the suffering of this right now? When the day of the race comes, I'll be there and I'll deal with it then. But I don't have to sit here and dread this thing happening day after day after day. There's no need for me to prolong the agony, right? I can just do today's training session. I'll go to the pool. I'll execute my training plan to the best of my ability, and I'll go enjoy my day. And just because I'm going to have a day of suffering in 5 months, well, when that day comes, I'll deal with it then. And it's about living in the moment and just kind of being where there's an old Teddy Roosevelt saying, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." Right. So, if you look like I do on the left there, you're not going to be running for an hour and a half outside, right? That's okay. You don't have to. Just make better food choices. Go for a walk, right? Start small, but keep it simple and just build on that, and you'll see success if you just be consistent with it.
Yeah, it's just James Clear, isn't it? Talking about habit forming and this sort of thing. It's an interesting one, actually. So people on the left there, of course, they're going to come to you, aren't they? They're going to say, they're not. When you talk to people on the left there, do you ask them if they're happy? Because obviously, is it something that you really delve into as a psychology aspect of it, or is it very simple for you? Like, we're going to take this and we're going to do these simple things and build upon them, and then you're going to end up like the one on the right there.
I think it's clear that on some level they're not happy. I don't think you can be, I don't like necessarily use the word happy, because happy kind of describes your temporary state.
Sure. I get it.
One of the things I don't really like about everything I do on social media is it kind of forces me to demonize my past self, right? Like, you have this before and after picture, right? And you're like, well,
Yeah,
the guy on the left is bad and the guy on the left is good, right? And I
I think yeah,
overcame this. And it's not necessarily a fair characterization. I still enjoyed my life quite a bit. I had a lot of great times. I had a lot of good memories. And, honestly, if it wasn't for trying to help people and inspire them, I wouldn't really even think too much about it because it doesn't really impact me and who I am now. But I didn't realize that life could be as good as it is now, right? I didn't even know that I could be this energetic and I could feel this good on a day-to-day basis back then. Because until
mm,
you actually do it, you can't really understand just what the possibilities are and how good you can feel, how much better you can feel. So I don't think even words can do it justice. That if I could figure out how to sell that, I'd probably be even more successful. Because once you kind of reach your potential and you're healthy and you're fit, like life is just so much better in every way.
I was going to ask you about this. So then you're at a party somewhere and someone says, "Hey, you want a beer?" If you say, well, "There's no reason to have a beer now because it doesn't fit into my lifestyle, beers anymore." Is that how it works?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll drink on occasion now. I don't really find the benefit of it. But what I've found is that by improving my emotional state, my experience with alcohol is very different.
Right.
So now that I'm in a higher emotional state, I don't. It's not nearly as addictive. I guess I don't look at it as an escape. When I
Okay.
was in a lower emotional state, well, that was kind of what I lived for. Was
Yeah.
getting that alcohol and being able to just kind of unwind or detach for a little bit, right? And now I don't have that. So now when I do drink, it actually feels kind of nice, and it enhances my mood, but at the same time, it's a poison, and I don't really
Mm.
want to, I don't really want to ingest it, and I'm trying to train for my goals, and it's not helping me get there. But I have no problem saying like I don't feel like having that. I was at a barbecue a few weeks ago, and everybody else was drinking, and I was just no, keep drinking my water. It's fine. I don't need
Yeah.
that.
No. Yeah, I'm a big fan because a lot of your clients are going to come to you and they're going to say, "Look, I got here probably as you did a little bit from from having a few beers at the bar and having a barbecue. And I don't want to let those things go. I like barbecuing. I like having a beer at the bar." And of course, you can say to them, "Well, yeah, fine, you can do that, but you just you got to put some other things in the way here. You got to look at some calorie deficit. You've got to do all these things, and then when you get there and everything, of course, you can have those things if you need them." It's I think a lot of fear, a lot that people have of maybe losing weight or adopting a healthy lifestyle is the fact they'd have to drop things permanently forever,
Yeah.
and they see it as, I think the language around alcohol cessation is all wrong. I never use the terms alcoholic, for example, because people, I think that labeling thing is horrible, and I never talk about quitting alcohol. I don't talk about that. I talk about gaining the life you really want, moving
Yeah.
forward and that sort of thing. I think it's more positive to talk in those kind of terms.
Yeah, and I mean, I would really describe my transformation as ultimately fixing my self-image, right? And it's a challenge to evolve your self-image because you see yourself in a certain way and this is comfortable for you, right? And especially if you're somebody who's in a low state, you're in a state of fear a lot. And in order to become something greater, you have to deal with that fear. You have to step out of who you are. You have to leave your comfort zone, and you have to live differently, right? So you might look at your life and say, well, I couldn't imagine my life without having 5 or 6 beers on a Saturday, because that different self-image is uncomfortable for you, right? There's a fear holding you back from making that choice and saying, well, yes, I can. I can live like that, or at least I can try to live like that. I'll tell you the first weekend that Courtney and I stopped drinking in 2016, that was tough. We were at a coffee shop and we were talking about the other day where I was just sitting there. We're like, all right, what do we do now? Right? It's like 3 PM on Saturday. We're at a coffee shop drinking coffee. It's like, well, what do we do to fill our time? And there's no really easy answer for that. You have to kind of build a new image of yourself, but you can build a better image of yourself and a healthier image of yourself. You have to go out and do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's that inability to see yourself in the future, isn't it? It's like, what does that future self look like? I do something with my guys where we do we in effect I'm taking my guys to a restaurant, and this is 10 years in the future, and there's going to be a guy there to meet them and have dinner with them. And as we open the door and I walk them up to the it's called the 10-year plan. I walk them up to the seat and I sit them down next to this guy. It's them in 10 years if they'd taken every single positive and healthy step they possibly could have done over those 10 years. And then I get the guys to write down what those things might be on a 10-year plan. And when they submit it to me and we read it, we discuss it, like, and there's a whole thing, it's a whole page, like, what is it? When you wake up in the morning, you look at it and that kind of stuff. And then we fold it up, we put it in a sock drawer, and every couple of months they look at it, because it's quite a powerful emotion when you think about it. You're going to have to be presented with your best self in 10 years time, your best self. Like the guy that's done everything that you should be doing if you were going to lead the best possible life you could be, and an example to your kids and your wife and your family, everything else. And then you're sat there opposite this dude thinking, I could have been this guy, but now I decided to take a different path. It's it's quite a powerful way of tripping people into making some kind of tangible and positive change in their lives.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful way of looking at it. Is there is this version of yourself off in the future, right? And that is you right now. And the more you can embody that person, like that version of yourself, if you think the way that person thinks, acts the way that person acts, use the words that person uses, right? You become that person by becoming that person, right? There's a great quote that I love from Ralph Waldo Emerson: do the thing and you will have the power, right? So, you just live your life like that person. And the more you're able to embody that, well, then that's how you become that person, right? Is just by becoming that person. And, this was what I did with there's a photo of me where it was 3 days after I started losing weight, and I have a big smile on my face. And it's the first photo with a genuine smile on my face from, probably in my 30s at least, right? Mm-hmm. And it was because I took the initiative to get started, and I made the commitment to get started. And it didn't matter that I had only started 2 or 3 days ago and I hadn't even lost any weight yet or seen any results. I was embodying who I am right now, right? I became that person, and I was happy.
It's agency, isn't it? You've taken control of your life. You haven't let other people take control of it. You've decided to make that change, haven't you? A lot of people don't ever do that. And I understand why, because we get comfortable and we get used to being comfortable, and we're comfortable. Being comfortable is comfortable, isn't it? Doing something uncomfortable is uncomfortable. It's hard sometimes to see into the future and see what all the potential that you have. It's hard sometimes to see what you might become.
Yeah,
but it's fascinating. So when people come to you, then you have, what do you do with them? Is it all purely individual, or do you have a set process that you work people through? What if I got a lot of my guys, all right, I'm going to say they're going to see this, a lot of my guys, they're going to be like, Matt's brilliant, Matt's the greatest ever, by the way, is what they're going to say. I'm going to be like, yeah, Matt's the man. What's up? I'll give you Matt's number. Let's go. And they're going to come to you. They're going to go, hey, Matt, I'm carrying a few pounds here, and you're obviously the master at this. What are you going to present them with? What happens next?
Yeah, it's customized for everybody, because I don't think there's a one size fits all approach that works for everybody, because it has to be something that is integrated into your life and works for you in your situation. And, certain people have different issues. Some people might have some issues with alcohol, right? Some people, they might have some other mental or emotional issues. So, but my program really is what I like to call a holistic program, where it's more than just the physical part of fat loss, like eat this many calories and eat these foods and that sort of thing. That's part of it, obviously. But, it's really about the mental and the emotional growth and believing in yourself. If you really believe in what you're doing, then you'll be successful. And I think self-belief and belief in what you're doing will achieve the result is the most important part of the process. If you believe in it, it will work.
Okay, so I'm going to write 2 things down there, because I want to talk about 2 things. So the first one I want to talk about is that idea that the words are just where we want to be, but the actions are where we're going to get to. in effect. So we all have these words, don't we? I'm going to get ripped. I'm going to get, but it's the actions that are going to take you there. And we can see people, can't we, saying, oh, it's that we kind of tell other people, isn't it? We say, hey, listen, in summer, I'm going to get myself real fit and everything. But it's like, you're not doing anything. You're not picking up a weight. I haven't seen you do any walking and stuff like that. So we've got to concentrate on that action, haven't we? The body, I feel the body leads the mind, Matt. What do you reckon? The body leads the mind. You got to be moving that body in order for the mind to follow. I know other people think something different, but how do you work that?
I think the mind can lead the body, and I think ideally the body and mind work together in harmony, right? I don't necessarily think one leads the other. The body can lead the mind, though, and that was probably how I did it. But I ultimately, I think everything happens because of your mind, right? You go to the gym and you pick up the weights because of your mind, and it's ultimately my mind that built this. I would say they work in harmony, and it's,
I get what you're saying.
I
feel that the movement encourages more movement. So if you've gone and had a big lift, you feel a pump. You're walking back, your shirt's all tight. You're like, your body wants to be getting back into that again. Of course, it's the mind that's driving a lot of this, but the body seems to be carrying it through. We need to be mobile, and we're not. You're walking 10,000 steps a day. A lot of people don't walk 2,000 steps a day. They just never get out, do they?
I think what I would say is that the body and mind aren't necessarily separate, and it's an illusion to see them as separate. The mind is a part of you, right? And most people are overly identified with their mind. And I knew that was how I saw myself when I was fat, right? Like, well, this was me up here. I'm up here somewhere, and this is the thing that carries me around, and it's not in very good shape, but whatever. It can get me to work and stuff and get me to the bar, right? And now I've kind of come to understand that, no, I'm a whole person, right? And my mind is no more who I am than my hand is or my spleen is, right? And I'm a holistic person that, my body and my mind are all part of the same sort of being.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying there. And also we do notice changes in people, things like that. And we notice them very small changes. We can just look at a person, you can see effort in the way their body is, or you can see effort into the way they present themselves. And I think that we notice that straight away. And we're kind of more attracted to listening to those kind of people that we just are, aren't we? I mean, you can't say, let's lose weight if you're carrying loads of pounds. You can't do it. As you said earlier, it's not going to work. And the second thing I really wanted to talk to you about, so when you're on your weight loss journey, and now I know obviously you said Courtney was doing this before you were even, but a lot of my guys, when they start making change with themselves, they get a lot of negativity from, say, spouses, or it may just be one or two comments that derails them, and then I've got to rebuild it. It's like one or two things that they're like, Tim, I went out last night, I got smashed up, had a curry, had loads of lager. What caused that? Well, my wife said that she preferred me the other way. And it's, I looked better before I'd lost loads of weight or something. Did you get any of that? Obviously not from spouses here, Matt, but did you get anything from co-workers or anything else? Did you find anything like that?
Yeah, 100%. And this is one of the biggest things that you have to overcome. This was one of the major things that derailed me in my 20s and caused me to kind of fall back off the wagon and gain my weight back again. And you have to understand that if you're surrounded by what I want to call low energy people, right? The sort of people who don't really want to see you succeed, the sort of people who feel like your success threatens them, it makes them feel badly about themselves. So when your spouse makes that comment to you, it has nothing to do with you and how you look. It has everything to do with them and how they feel about themselves, and how your success is highlighting to them that they aren't doing what they should be doing, right? So it's easier for them to get you to stop and fall back to where they are than it is for them to deal with these painful feelings. So these are the people I like to call, the crabs in the bucket, right? They just want to pull you back into the bucket. They don't want to crawl out of the bucket themselves with you. They just want to pull you back down, because once you're back down in the bucket, it's like, oh, okay, well, look, see, it's a good thing I didn't bother trying. And, this is one of the reasons why gaining weight back again is such a public failure, because all these people I worked with, and I was friends with, I guess I'll say, right? They would make comments to me about how great I looked and all this other stuff. But then when I gained the weight back again in less than 6 months, no one ever pulls you aside and says, "Hey, what's going on, Matt? You look like you've put on like 20 pounds. You know, everything okay? You know, like what?" Right? These aren't people who supported me. These were people who were around me, and ultimately they felt better about themselves because I failed, right? And they said, well, it's a good thing I didn't bother to do all that crazy exercise and that crazy diet he was doing, because look at him. Here it is a year later, and he's just as fat as he was. So good thing I didn't bother doing any of that, right? And it makes them kind of feel superior, or at least justifies their lack of action and their lack of agency. So being surrounded by the right people is tremendously helpful. Supportive people who want to see you succeed, people who realize, you know, who have an abundance mindset, who realize that you can be successful and I could be successful. And if we're both successful, it's going to make the world a better place. This is with the power that I find in social media, especially on Twitter, is you can surround yourself with people like that. You can find and follow people who are high energy, who are invested in your success, who want to see you succeed. You can connect with other like-minded people who will support you. You can support them, versus the people in your day-to-day life. They might not be like that, and they're probably not going to be like that, because when I look around, I think most of the people that I see on a day-to-day basis aren't like that.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And that's how I feel as well. It's almost projection, isn't it? It's they're projecting something onto you because they see change. But and we hear the accusations, don't they? You know, we hear this, oh, you're just a crazy one of those fitness crazy dudes or something. And they kind of, it's a throwaway line, but those lines can damage you when you're trying to do something positive with your life. And then if you reject that, and if you're like, well, I'm going to go and do it anyway, you feel like you're risking some kind of relationship or damaging their relationship because you're ignoring what they're saying. I think that's derailed a lot of people. I think more so than we realize. It's very easy. And that's why it's so important, of course, to get yourself around a team of people who are supportive like that. And the gym is a great place for that, because when you hit the gym, I've got a gym in my garage actually, but I'm thinking about signing back up with the gym I used to be at, because I need, I like doing swimming or whatever, it's got a pool. But you've got people there that are doing exactly the same thing as you. They're trying to better themselves in a gym, in a gym environment. Do you find that when you go on these, when you do your races, you've got people there that are very supportive of everyone?
Yeah, and triathlons is just a great sport for that. It's really inclusive, and you know, it's the other athletes are generally really supportive of you, because I think everybody who lines up for a race, certainly like an Ironman race, they understand what it takes just to get to that starting line. And you know, there's a camaraderie with that and a respect for the other athletes. You know, I don't necessarily find that so much with some of the other sports. I would say just like running, you don't necessarily have that as much, but triathlon is a super supportive community generally. The other athletes are really supportive, and you know, just the spectators are also really supportive. You know, and it's interesting that you'll see people cheering for you in a race or cheering for you on social media who might hardly know you, or, you know, just, you know, might not know you at all. But you're like, well, how this person's more supportive of me than somebody who's a friend or a family member, and, you know, has been a part of my life for years or decades is, right. And it's, you know, again, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with that person and them. Right. So, you know, having that support is crucial, you know, and it's great. And, you know, getting involved in a sport that can, you know, get you to compete with people, but in a healthy way, it's a great thing.
Well, look, I really appreciate it. Just we've got 2 minutes. One thing I just want to ask you, because it's like, what are we going to do about this thing where we have these the plus size models on the lingerie campaigns that's come out of the States? It's your fault, yours personally, your fault. It's what are we doing about this? Because we're going to get young people growing up thinking that's acceptable, where we know it's unhealthy. So I can't remember what they call that thing. Body positive movement is or something. Okay, I just stabbed in the dark there. How do we combat this? Are we calling people out? I know some people are. I saw Jordan Peterson say something recently about, I'm not going to support it. It's unhealthy. You know, he's a psychologist. He knows. What happens with it? Does it fizzle out, or does it become the new normal where everything, you know, we're just going to get? And also, here's the thing. I've noticed women can be plus size, but men can't be on the posters. It seems men have to be all ripped up and everything. You know, I don't know what that's about. But what do we do? Is it going to fizzle out? What do you reckon? What's the state in America now? What's going on?
There's people who make a lot of money off us being unhealthy. And, you know, I think large sectors of the economy are based off of people being obese and unhealthy, and, you know, the food that goes into that, and the healthcare that goes into that, and, you know, clothing. It has to be a grassroots change, I think, because it's not going to come from the top. These big corporations who are making money off of this aren't going to, you know, they're not going to undo it. The government's certainly not going to, you know, encourage it, right? It has to come from a grassroots movement of, you know, just setting an example for your friends and your family. And, you know, people aren't going to do what you tell them to. You got to just go out there and lead them by example, you know, and show them that there's a better way. But it works, right? And, you know, I'll think about Courtney, and she was doing 75 hard before we moved. And there were multiple people in her office that started doing it because she was doing it, right? And people would start going for walks at lunch and stuff. And it wasn't because she told them to do it. It was because they saw her, they saw how happy she was, they saw how it benefited her, and they followed her example, right? So by being your best self, you're putting that example out there for everybody else, and everybody will see what you're doing, and some people will follow that example, and they might not do it immediately. It might take a long time, you know, but when you plant the seed's going to grow, right? And I was talking with a woman who was teaching her son how to swim the other day, and the son was misbehaving, and you can tell she was just like at her wit's end. And I said to her, like, what you're doing right now is great. And even if he doesn't stick with this swimming, right? Even if this is only like a few months and he doesn't do it for another decade, well, he might start doing it again in his 20s. And it might all be because of what you taught him when he was 8 years old, how to swim, right? That might be the catalyst for that. Like, I wouldn't have been doing a triathlon if my mother didn't take me to do swimming lessons when I was a kid, you know? So it took, you know, 30 years for that to pay off, but it did eventually. So just go out there, be the best you can be, try to live a healthy lifestyle, show other people, try to include them. And if everyone does that, then we'll turn it around.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of that. Because even then, if Courtney's doing that and some people are doing it with her and stuff, and she can see that in the office, what she can't see is other people, you know, that these other people are going home to also start doing it. And it spreads out, you know, it spreads, the whole message spreads out. Then we can defeat these corporations, Matt. We can bring them down and burn them and create a great world where everyone's fit and healthy and having a great life.
That'd be awesome. That's what I'm trying to do. So,
well, you are. Yes, it. You're a leader in the space, and that's why you're here. You know, giving the message out. And I hope people go to @MattIzzo there and go and follow you on Twitter. And of course, you've got a good, decent Instagram as well. Yeah, that's pretty. It's pretty
Matt
good.
Izzo Fitness on Instagram. So,
what was it called again? Matt Izzo Fitness.
Matt Izzo Fitness. Yep.
Brilliant. Goes to that as well. Well, look, Matt, I really appreciate having on. By all means, come on whenever. Also, best of luck in the Iron, man. I mean, that's nailed, isn't it? So, you know, I'm looking at, I'm rooting for you. I'm there with my pom-poms. You know, that'd be great.
Got a large community of people on Twitter doing that race. There's probably over a dozen people on Twitter doing it. So it's going to be an interesting day. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, we're going to set an example for a lot of people, hopefully, and, you know, show them that you can achieve these great things if you put the work in.
Yeah, get some pictures up that one. I think it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, for sure.
Really appreciate you coming on. I'll send everyone I know to you, and hopefully we can, as you said, you know, start changing the world one person at a time.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on, Tim. Appreciate it.
Take care. Wow, that was pretty special, wasn't it? Matt Izzo, then, obviously fitness legend. I mean, this guy knows so much, and that's the thing. He's got the knowledge. I mean, and also he's so authentic with what he brings to the table. He's like, this is where I was. This is where I am now. And it's better than where I was unhappy, but now I am happy. Okay, so go and follow him on Twitter @MattIzzo. Okay, go and hit him up on Insta or whatever these things are called now. Follow him, okay, and let that kind of stuff rub off on you a little bit. And I think it'll be much easier for you to get into your own fitness journey. Guys, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. This will obviously be on YouTube. It'll be on podcasts as well. I will be doing more podcasts. I didn't think people liked them. Apparently people do. I'll be putting more stuff on there. Apologies. It's just the content, isn't it, and getting it out. But thanks so much, guys. Till next time then. Tim Davies, Fast Performance.